have this conversation. Thank you all for getting on time. Thank you for
Yeah, thank
everybody's
you.
fly. Good job. And all right, let's get it started.
Come on,
Welcome
Erroll.
back to.
Sorry. Okay, take two.
We're leaving this in too, by the way. All right.
No.
So, all right. Welcome to episode 7. This is Erroll and Tanzeem.
I can say my own name. Hi, I'm Tanzeem.
You want to keep talking now?
Oh,
Now
great.
that there's the hostility.
So today, we're going to be talking to 3 teachers who work in Providence Public Schools. If you guys watched our last podcast, we talked to a teacher from the Bronx, and we wanted to sort of get as many teachers as we can from different places, different cities, different states to come on and talk about what's going on with reopenings, because we realized that the issues that we're facing in different cities, they're not unique. We're kind of all going through the same thing right now. So with that being said, we wanted to create sort of a platform for teachers to come on and talk about what it is that they're facing right now. So Erroll, if you want to introduce our guests.
The last time I tried to introduce someone, I got yelled at. So what I'm going to do is we have 3 guests. They're all public school teachers in Providence. And I'd like you all to just introduce yourselves. Say as much as you like, what school you're at, what age group, and how long you've been a teacher. And let's start with Lindsay. You want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Paiva. I use she, her pronouns. I teach at Webster Ave Elementary School in Providence. I teach 3rd grade multilingual learners. And I've been a teacher for about 7 years in multiple settings. This is my 4th year in Providence and my 3rd year at Webster Ave.
Awesome. Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. My name's Cassandra Inez. I am a 4th year teacher. I am at Mount Pleasant High School. I've taught 10th graders for the last 3 years. This year is my 1st year teaching freshmen, intro to lit.
Last but not least, Aarav, tell me how to say your name.
It's pronounced Aarav, like the
Aarav.
letter R, emphasis on the first syllable, and the second syllable rhymes with love. So Aarav. Aarav Sundaresh. I am a 12th year Providence teacher. I currently teach at Classical High School. I'm an art teacher. And previous to Classical, I taught for 9 years at Nathan Bishop Middle School. And I just have to, sorry, Cass, can I say this piece? That we have, Cassandra and I have this prior connection in our earlier lives of working together at New Urban Arts when I was an artist in residence and Cassandra was a senior, I believe, in high school. So
wow.
You gotta love Providence.
That's so Providence. That's awesome. So again, thank you all for being on tonight. We think that this conversation is really important. We know that Providence just finished its first week of school. So we were told in the news that this was like that school, the start date was going to be pushed back. But you all, I think, had students this week, right? So listen, take yourselves off of mute unless you got some like super wild noise. I want you all to just jump in. We're going to jump in. We're just going to try to have an open conversation. So someone tell us a little bit about what this week has been like for you.
So I can start. I'll jump in. So yeah, I think at least at Mount Pleasant, it seems like each school might be doing their own thing. That's not very clear. But at Mount Pleasant, we're phasing in with the freshmen. We're starting with freshmen, and they are mostly on an A-B schedule. So half come in on one day, the other half come in on the second day, and they rotate. So since I'm teaching freshmen, I am in person with them in the classroom every day. And it's sad, you know, like it's just been a very long week and the hallways are quiet. The kids are quiet, which is not very typical for teenagers, right?
Why not?
And I don't know. I'll start with that. There's a lot to unpack there, but somebody else can jump in.
Could I just ask a question, and you guys can get to it after you talk about your first week? But I'm just curious if somebody could walk us through kind of what did it look like? What was the planning like before the reopening happened? What were they telling you guys? What was the plan? How did it actually unfold? So anything like that.
Well, I think that's such an important and required question that any one of us as teachers or community members should ask of everyone, not only the folks who are in schools. And so that question, like, what did we know? What was the plan? Like, no one knew, no one knows what the concrete plan was or is. And that is very hard for anyone, right? Let alone folks who are trying to support children who have been kind of disconnected from each other for many months. Transitions are always hard coming back to school. And to come back to school with so much confusion and fear and anxiety was challenging. We can all sort of talk about some specifics in terms of like where those communication gaps were, the sort of challenges in messaging from our district and state around the actual versus perceived choices that families had, and as well the actual versus perceived versus expected protocol for safety within buildings. So, you know, all of that was all very, very confused. And so I want to wonder if Lindsay or Cass, if you want to sort of build up that.
Yeah, and I would say something that Aarav mentioned, but it's still confused. So, like, we've been in school for 5 days, and I would say that I'm just as confused, if not more, than I was Sunday night. And another thing that happened primarily at the elementary level that's important, right? So Providence's context right now is that we're in a turnaround. And so the administration is trying to come down hard on teachers. We also don't currently have a contract. We're in negotiations. It expired August 31st. So that's another layer, right? And so they're trying to come down hard on us. And there's this sense of like, you need to go above and beyond. You need to suck it up. You need to work super hard. And there's no excuses. And there's no accountability for the district staff, which is frustrating, right? So like at the elementary level, they moved around 8 principals 3 weeks before school. So our school was one of the affected schools. So we got a brand new principal who frankly was a poorly performing principal. And my school has a pretty strong teaching staff. So they swapped out our very strong principal they swapped them, right? So now we have someone who's relatively incompetent. Probably I should be careful because I am not tenured. But anyway, so pretty incompetent, right? And doesn't know the school setting, doesn't know the children, doesn't even know the staff. And is tasked with this ridiculously difficult logistical challenge, right, of keeping 400 kids safe and all the staff safe in a building that she doesn't know. So partially it's hard. So not to get like all tangential, but I would say like, yeah, the challenge has been what's going on in the media and what's being perceived by the public at large is so drastically different than what we're experiencing on a daily basis. And I think that's why we felt that these actions and these like trying to build some movement has been critical, because we need to tell the stories of what's really happening. And because we have, the power of our labor that we can withhold and utilize, I think it puts us in a different position. So I've felt, this week was totally tragic. I think the district provided little to no guidance around general safety protocols. And for the little ones, like everything is critical, right? Like walking in a line is so hard. Like I'm supposed to have a single file line. I have 20 students in my class, so do the math. Like they're going to be across the building. I can't even see the end of my line, right? So just these small things, or like the bathroom, they're on a bathroom schedule. They have 6 minutes to use the bathroom, and the janitor, we have one bathroom in our school. The janitor's supposed to clean the entire bathroom between pods, and it's not possible, you know, or kids have emergencies.
Wow. That is information that
Yeah.
I did not know. Wow,
Yeah.
one bathroom
One bathroom
for
So
all genders, or
So no, there are two bathrooms, right? There's a boys' room and a girls' room and a gender neutral nurses' bathroom that can be used.
wow.
Yeah.
So Lindsay, you said that you have 20 students in
The
your
other
class,
thing I
right?
sort of throw in,
I'm sorry. Just because like I think what you were saying about like the sort of perception, because I remember that there weren't supposed to be more than 15 kids in a class, right? So I want you all to be able to jump in and to say what you were trying to say, but I think if you could talk a little bit about like what the media is telling folks, is happening versus what that reality is. So 15 kids, what else?
Yeah, I think also like I mean, I don't know what's happening at the high school level, and the middle school, but at the elementary, the parents were really misled. All parents were misled about what the virtual learning option was. So they were under the impression they were going to have the classroom teacher. And now they're finding out that it's a random teacher with random other students, and they're pulling their kids out of VLA, which they weren't supposed to be able to do. So my class size was 15. And then every day it has grown as parents pull their kids, and that's individual principals making choices, right? And it's really inequitable because some of my colleagues have 10 kids or 11 kids, so there's this, and I can't physically even fit them in my room, right? I mean, they're 2 feet apart, maybe.
And then also, like, along the same lines of equity for the families, not everyone knows that is an option because it was communicated in the summertime. All right, you need to make this decision to attend the virtual learning academy. And I'm going to come back to that language in a minute. But like, you have to make that call by August 18th, right? Somewhere around there.
Yep.
School was originally scheduled to start August 31st. But that week, the week right around August 18th, Governor Raimondo said, we're gonna actually push back the start of school. We're gonna push back the start of school 2 weeks so that we can better prepare. The teachers and schools need more time. But that's can we swear on this program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say try not to go too far with like the
Okay.
F-bombs so that
but it's BS, right?
I mean,
because the plans had been in place. Again, we can talk more about those plans, but those plans had been in place. And nothing really happened in those 2 weeks in terms of the actual building preparations. Absolutely nothing. People were still scrambling on the Friday before
It was like
school.
the weekend before school
Yeah.
started that they did everything.
So
But
families
they did
had
something.
right, exactly, and still, well, gosh, my goodness. But families had decided by August 18th. But the governor wasn't making the call for how schools were going to reopen, whether it was going to be all in person, partial, all distance. Wasn't going to be decided until August 31. Is that correct? Around there, I can't remember the actual number of the day. And so, and it was communicated that decision was binding for the entire semester, and that at that point, families would have the choice to stay in the virtual learning academy or to go back into in-person school if that was an option, but they were not going to be guaranteed the spot at their regular school. So particularly for schools that are like specialty schools or magnet schools, like PCTA, like classical, like I'm blanking on the other specialty schools, right? That students work real hard and are very particularly sort of placed there, or want to be there. And not to say, and then in other schools, like you have community, you have relationships. So that was something. So that was a thing, and then but then the district and administrators at buildings said, that would be like a temporary potential disruption. Come school year 21-22, you'd be back at your kind of regular school. So parents had to make this decision before they really knew what school was going to look like.
Yeah.
And again, at that time, they had said it would be binding.
So
Banana pants.
I just want to follow up on a couple things. So, with the shuffling around of students from to different schools, was that like trying to keep the numbers low in each classroom? Like, what was the rationale for that? And then also, I would like to know what was the rationale for moving principals around? Like, why? Or did they just not give you any rationale? They just did that?
There was no rationale. There was no rationale provided. The staff, we had like an emergency meeting with our principal, and she was like crying. I mean, she had been at our school for 14 years, and she was just moved at the drop of a hat. So there was no rationale provided. In his email, the superintendent kind of outlined like, these are the strengths of this person. These are the strengths of this person. That's why they're moving to these schools. But the reality is like many, they're also they're hiring a lot of principals from out of state, and they're recruiting nationwide because this is all part of this turnaround effort and world-class talent, again, BS, and this devaluing of what Rhode Island residents bring to the table. Because the superintendent himself is from out of state, right? So there's this idea that Rhode Islanders can't get it done. They haven't gotten it done. So we're going to come in and, neoliberal steamroll over this shit, and then it's going to be all good. So there was no rationale provided. And frankly, I think there's so little under our control right now, right? We can't even barely plan for the next week because we don't know what the numbers are going to do. And I just don't see why that decision needed to be made. And 3 weeks before school, if they needed to make that, it could have been in May, it could have been in June,
Could have been in March.
Could have been not now, in a year maybe, like give us a minute. So I think it's this power play, in my opinion, for them to show that they can rock our worlds in a minute,
So the superintendent, so you have to forgive me, I don't know a lot about what's going on in Providence, and I think a lot of people listening may not know either. But the superintendent, is this like a new superintendent? Who is this person? When did they come in? Where are they from? You mentioned that they're not from Providence. Where are they?
He's from Florida. So he was recruited from Florida, and there's like this thing called the network now, which is like the overarching admin and supervisors of our districts right now. And so I also have a principal who was hired from out of state. He's from Kansas. And he had I don't even know if he's fully moved here. I know he's here. I don't know about his family. Days before school started.
Wow.
Can you guys talk a little bit more? So the superintendent is new. You talked about like Providence being a turnaround. I think like just for our, couple listeners who aren't familiar with Providence, like talk about like the state takeover and all of that.
Sure. Yeah, I think I also just want to sort of add on to that information about the superintendent decision. That was an appointment, right, by Commissioner Angelica Infante Green, who also was new in 2019, and she was recruited from New York City, and has done important work, right? I need to name that and own that, and she's and we've had a slightly different experience here with her, and they both Commissioner Infante Green and Superintendent Harris. Can you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that they were both part of Chiefs for Change?
Yes,
Is that
I was
right?
just going to say that. Yeah,
Okay.
That's an important piece of this puzzle.
And Chiefs for Change is like an education leadership development thing that was formed by Jeb Bush.
Oh no.
And so right, and so I have a lot to say about that and a lot of questions about that, around sort of like what are their priorities,
right,
in terms of the future of education. Is it charterization? Is it creating more of these sort of virtual situations so that you can consolidate teachers that can teach, air quote, teach many more students at a time. So a lot of questions there. But I'm sorry, Tanzeem, you were doing another question.
No, I was gonna say, it's probably a combination of all these things, because if you look at what's happening nationwide with education, there is a push for privatization across the board. So more and more charters are popping up. They've always wanted to get rid of public education, and it feels like in this moment with so much uncertainty and what's going on with this pandemic, this is the moment that they're gonna seize to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think you're absolutely right with this idea that is it just a push to get virtual learning. You can have more students in a classroom, less teachers, because let's be real, it's all about money for them. It's not
Absolutely.
about our kids, it's not about our communities, it's not about whether or not our students are learning. Has nothing to do with any of that. It's just about saving money, not having to pay as many teachers. And I just want to say, it's really interesting. So I teach at a community college. And so we're doing virtual learning this semester. We also did it last semester. And this semester, I have had a bigger class than I've ever had, ever teaching in a university. My classload was 39 students. And that is like outrageous, especially for this school. We never have classes this big. And so it just goes to show that, where they can cut costs and cut corners, they will do it, and they do not care,
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think that it's important to look at the context nationwide, because if you think about remember 10 years ago when the charters were really booming and everything happened, right? Think about New Orleans getting taken over and totally chartered. And so organizations like Chiefs for Change go into different cities and they use buzzwords like equity and supporting BIPOC kids and doing this work out of social justice. And what's really happening is they're delegitimizing the work that communities have been doing for decades, and they're also slowly but surely privatizing. If you look at, and it's just so telling, not just these power moves or these shifts, but what they're trying to push on us right now is they hired the New Teacher Project, which was founded by Michelle Rhee, to do all this PD for us and all of these studies and the things that they're trying to they're making district-wide decisions based on that kind of literature, and that's a particular brand, right? We know what Michelle Rhee is capable of and what she believes in and what she thinks teaching should look like.
Could you talk a little bit about that? I'm sorry not to cut you off, but just for people who might not know, who is Michelle Rhee? What is it that she's pushing?
Yeah, so Michelle Rhee is all about Teach for America, right? So she's pushing for, and I think she was the superintendent in DC, is that right? Or she did some work in DC, right? Yeah. So she's really pushing for charters. She's pushing for fast tracking teacher candidates, not fast tracking highly qualified folks from the community, which is a model that I do believe in, right? Fast tracking TAs, fast tracking family members. This is fast tracking rich white kids from college to do their time in an urban setting for a couple of years and put it on, pad their resume to go to law school, right?
That's key, right? That it's for a couple of years so you can keep their salaries low. You're not going to have to invest in their sort of longevity of what their earnings would be, because you can count on folks staying for a year or two and leaving. And so it is another push to sort of keep those salaries at $40,000 or under, which then brings to question so many other issues of how and why can we expand our teaching force into our communities, into more Black and Indigenous and other people of color communities, so that we can actually start to reflect the communities we teach.
And frankly, I mean, related to unions and building power within unions and grassroots work, it's you can't really build power in a union if people are cycling in and out every couple of years, right? And so it's all part of this larger agenda to bust unions and really reduce their power.
Yeah, it's the privatization of everything and taking away worker power. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right.
Can you all speak to like what has been happening on the ground in Providence around this stuff?
Sure. So in terms of organizing, or in terms of like more what's happening in schools, like the day to day?
I want to get to the organizing. I think like let's start by just laying the like tell me what the day to day has looked like.
Sure. Cass, do you want to jump in and share what it's like at Mount?
Yeah, so we opened the doors up at 8:10 for students to start coming into the building. Mind you, students are arriving 7:30. So as it gets colder, they will be waiting outside. And so they come inside, they get screened by the nurse and some other staff members. They get their temperature checks. They, get a little dab of hand sanitizer, and they're on their way. They eat breakfast in their homeroom, and then they transition to their classes throughout the day. They were having lunch in their classrooms up until Wednesday, and then started to move it down into the cafeteria. So now they're having lunch in the cafeteria. The classrooms, you've maybe seen pictures online, like Lindsay said. Desks are not 6 feet apart. I think in the checklist that was created by the city, or the district or the network or whoever, it was to space your desks as close to 6 feet as possible, but it wasn't like required. So,
and it started at 6 feet, and then they were like, no, it could be 3 feet. No, it'll just have to be as far apart as possible.
As much as you can, yeah. So they installed fans in the classes that had windows that opened and that did not have an AC. And
you mean like state of the art high tech fans, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, fantastic.
Box fans from Family Dollar. Come on.
Yeah.
We have tape on the floors, so that students are going in one direction. The stairwells are marked, but none of that is followed. None of it. And you can't blame students, and they're going to blame the teachers for not enforcing it, right? And they're going to, find some excuse for why this isn't working. And like I said, just very quiet, very solemn hallways.
Yeah.
But did you say that students are? I'm sorry, Tanzeem. Students are switching classes.
Oh yeah, they have 7 periods a day.
How are those stable pods? And then students are eating in the cafeteria. So like, what? Just like far away from each other, right? And how is that working?
I have 107 kids on my roster. So between A and B days, I see 107 kids. Our desks are not cleaned throughout. When classes change, there is someone who comes and wipes down the doorknobs maybe every 2 or 3 hours. Bathrooms are not scheduled, so they get to go to the bathroom anytime they want, which makes it harder to schedule cleanings. And then they are released at a staggered time at the end of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds pretty similar to what's going on at my school. I just want to share like the experience that I have, because I teach mixed grade courses. It's like it's presenting a variable that again is adding more confusion and challenges. So like Mount, only the 9th graders are in right now, and so they're also running an AB schedule. Initially, our school had asked for the AB schedule to be 2 days of A in a row, no classes on the Wednesday for a deep cleaning, and then 2 days of the B student, so that at least they were like 2 days in a row of the same like cohort. But that was denied, and so now it's alternating days, and there's no deep cleaning occurring in between those days, in between those cohorts. And so, this first week was, for me personally, I'm probably the anomaly, that in front of me was a manageable number of students, because I teach mixed 9th and 10th grade students. So I could have my students relatively safely spaced, though moving around was is impossible in terms of keeping distance. Simultaneous to having my students in front of me, I'm teaching my 10th graders who are at home doing remote learning and who are required to sign in at the beginning of each period, but then like there's a lot of ambiguity around what like the expectations around synchronous versus asynchronous learning. So a lot of the messaging has been, well, it can be asynchronous. They can sort of guide their pacing and engage at whatever time works for them, but they have to sign in every 15 minutes. Like, so that is very challenging for that communication piece. And of course it impacts pacing. And I'm someone who I believe strongly, like if there's someone right in front of me, I'm going to give them the most attention, right? Because you're right there. And I'm, it just is I don't know, it's just a human thing that I feel. And then I'm like, but but the 10th graders, sorry, I'm getting too detailed there. The 10th graders are supposed to be coming back on September 28th. So one more week of the 9th graders just on their own. And then so when those 10th graders come, I'm going to have too many students in my class, period. And those stable cohorts, so even though the cohorts weren't really stable because as they're moving from class to class, as we've identified, they're kind of like, okay, at least they're in this like 150 student, half of their grade, whatever number it is, cohort. But now you're going to mix in the 10th graders. So now that's expanding, and they do have contact because in the arts, in mathematics, and in world languages, they're all mixed grade classes.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say at the elementary level, it's like bananas because they're tiny. So we did a staggered reopening. We had the first graders and kindergartners by themselves for 3 days. And that was already like pure chaos, but nobody pumped the brakes. And third grade came, the second and third came on Thursday. And it was extra chaotic. And then Monday, the 4th and 5th will join us. So we have, not sure why it's set up this way, but we have 4 different doors with 4 different screeners who are screening temperatures. So kindergartners use one door, and then first graders, and then blah, blah, blah. And then they are coming into the school as soon as they get there from 8:15 on. We don't start till 8:35. And so there was no one assigned to watch them from 8:15 to 8:35. So we had to kind of like inform them that, 6-year-olds can't be left by themselves ever. And like there needed to be coverage. So now there's one person per floor responsible for watching all of the children, which is definitely possible, right? So
totally doable.
Wow.
Totally bizarre. And I mean, we had to fight to get the temperatures. I just want to like be really clear that it took us organizing and pushing for them to even take temperatures, because up to a week ago, they weren't going to. They were going to have kids self-report with thumbs up and thumbs down. So ask a 5-year-old who has never been to school and has spoken Spanish from birth to tell you how they're feeling with the thumb. So that's already a big deal, right? So then the kids come right inside. We've always had breakfast in the classroom, but now it's very stressful because I need to like sanitize them all when they come in, then give them their and like I have to do a lot of things. Like real talk, I usually give all the kids jobs, right? Like there's the breakfast people, right. There's the like paper passer. They can't have any of those, so it's taken me like 3 times as long to do everything. And to be honest, like teaching MLLs, like they have to sit, in rows. I've never taught in a row in my life, and they can't like interact. And I have kids at all different levels that really need that, right? So aside from that, the logistics are impossible. So Aramark, I want to say, okay, and the masks, right? The little ones. So they have masks, they have a face shield. They're supposed to wear both. It's really hard to even get them to wear one. I have one little boy, he's just like so excited to share all the time, but he goes for speech. So he has trouble talking, and the mask is like an extra impediment. So he just keeps like slipping it down because he has so much to say, and it's like breaking my heart to, and I think the anxiety of the kids, I don't know what it's like for the older kids, but the little ones are really afraid and they're very small. And so they're like getting angry with each other, right? So I'm in this difficult position where I think discipline is going to take another form, right, during COVID. Like, I don't want to be mask police. I was never hoodie police. So like, I'm not gonna like but then it's like a hoodie isn't, you're not gonna get sick if you have your hoodie on, but if you take a mask off, you could. And so there's this thing of, I need to like come up with a hand signal or something because the kids all day will be like, put on your mask, stop doing that, don't come near me. They're playing tag today, and I had to tell them, like, you can't tag each just it's really hard. And the lunches in the classroom, they have to eat and then they have to clean all the tables, in a really short amount of time. And Aramark, I love our custodians and they're working as hard as they can, but as we've said in every event we've had, it is impossible for them to do what they're being asked to do with the staff. They hired 60 more people. It's not enough, right? So they can't clean the bathroom. They're not allowed to come in our classroom during the school day. So teachers are supposed to clean all day long at our discretion. Right? So I've lost probably like 40 to 45 instructional minutes a day cleaning because I'm the only one who can do it. Right? So yeah, morale is low.
So I'm just wondering, how much of all of this that you guys are telling us do you think parents know? Like, how aware are parents of what is actually going on in these schools? All of your faces.
Yeah.
All your faces.
It's a mix. I gotta say, I know it's. I don't know. We don't know. Yeah. I know that information is starting to become clear, for two reasons. The evidence I have for that is two reasons. One, parents are reaching out to me and saying, "What's going on?" And also, "Oh, I saw you at that thing. Thank you for speaking out for our students. What can we do to help?" Right. And then the second piece of evidence that they're starting to understand what's happening is that they're pulling their students from VLA. So school started Monday. We've all talked about our rosters not being finalized till the Friday before school started, or even later for some of us. And and they're still like, so I just had, I don't know, 7 more students added today. So I don't know. So I don't know how many more will continue to be pulled from VLA by that choice. Yeah.
So speaking of the virtual learning stuff, can you talk a little more about that? Like, what exactly is the VLA thing?
Sure.
What's not working about it? Why are students transitioning back into the classroom?
Well, VLA, I have a fact sheet that I can look at right now. VLA is a pre-packaged program. It's through Pearson's, which is like a education textbook curriculum distribution business, and there are different like kind of packages that a district can sign up for, and I think the different packages vary in terms of how many students it can have as in capacity, and it also varies in terms of how many different courses are available. So that is sort of like a first level issue, right? Is that students may have been taking, they may have been studying Japanese or AP statistics or whatever their course load may have been. And they're not guaranteed that those same courses would be available at the Virtual Learning Academy. So that's sort of like one surface level issue. Not to mention, then we can start talking about the disservice to our multiple language learners, to the sort of disruption or erasure of connection with a teacher, because again, since it's a sort of packaged curriculum, there's students are sort of going through their lessons or their activities, and their teacher of record is more like they can like check in with them. Mm-hmm. And so that's the justification for the numbers people are starting to report. High school teachers in the Virtual Learning Academy having upwards to 200 students that they're they're monitoring that for across subjects. Elementary school teachers reporting up numbers of 52 students that they have on their rosters, right? And
yeah, in elementary, they're supposed to be directly teaching them from the curriculum that we are using. So they promised parents parallel experiences. So like, for example, today, they told all the parents to go to the schools and pick up the materials, but they never told the principals or the teachers that parents were coming. So we had parents showing up in droves today to pick up workbooks and folders and things that weren't ready for them. And so to have 52 students that you're teaching directly on Zoom is physically impossible.
And so to be clear, the they that we're talking about who's directing all of this is the network, those people. Okay. Sounds like a cabal of idiots, but yeah.
I just want to
think of a lot of that. Make their facial expressions just answering that.
So you guys are mentioning that you're getting more students switching from VLA back to in-person. The opposite is happening at Mount Pleasant. We have a lot of students leaving and going to places like the Met or a charter school. So it's pushing them out of the public school system. At least that's what I'm seeing.
That is a thing, right? That I can imagine that those no-shows on my roster may be that circumstance too, right?
Yeah.
So there's students' names who are there, but I haven't met them virtually. I haven't seen them in class yet. I did have actually one parent be like, "Can you please stop sending me your class updates because my student is at this school and not at classical." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." I don't know. Does you guys want to talk? Like, I feel like there's also, as we're saying all this about VLA, it's really important to acknowledge the language of describing what is VLA and identifying what is VLA and using the word virtual versus remote versus distance, because that was also an issue in terms of like, and continues to be an issue, frankly, around this academy.
Right. Well, I think another piece that I wanted to mention before I forgot is that there's an unplanned, well, there are a million unplanned pieces of this, but one that came up literally before we came back to school. Wednesday morning, one of my students' mothers tested positive for COVID. So the child has to be quarantined until October 8th. And it's not clear who's supposed to be teaching her because I'm physically in the classroom. She can't access anything through VLA because she's not technically enrolled. And I still haven't gotten an answer from my principal. So this poor baby, these 2 days, I didn't push out any work to her, even though I want to, because I'm trying to be thoughtful about, what actions we're taking as teachers and not taking on too much work. One of the teachers, I think the piece that we haven't talked about too, I'm glad that we're focusing on student experience, but also thinking about teachers, is that so many of the staff are older or are high risk or have spouses that are high risk.
Yeah.
And they didn't all get positions in the VLA. So like, for example, the 4th grade teacher at my school, she's high risk. She didn't get a VLA position, so she's just calling in sick. And they don't have a sub for her, right? So her babies are coming on Monday. And so the principal asked the 2 4th grades to combine, which is like a big no-no, right, for the union. And it's not okay. So
and that's going to be more children in those spaces. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So we have about 12 minutes left. I think that all of this has been beautiful and so important, but I want people to know about the actions that you guys have done, and you guys talked earlier about like what parents can do to help. I'd love to hear more about that and to hear more about the actions.
Sure. Well, I think in terms of just how to help, I think it's always important to just reach out to the parent engagement office, to the school building principal, the assistant principals, to basically try to ask the questions. And I think even more powerful than that is for parents to try to connect with each other and ask those questions together, so that they're sort of organizing their thoughts and organizing their asks of their leadership in terms of the schools. I think to one extent it's important to start there, but at the same time, I don't think they should wait with like, not good enough answers, right? Then they need to go take it to the network, to the commissioner, because again, the lines between the network and RIDE are blurry right now because of the state takeover. So asking questions, being persistent, banding together, and not buying into the teacher shaming that is the dominant narrative in the media right now, that we're not working hard enough, that we're not calling all of our families
on Friday when you got the list.
Exactly. And sort of quite a narrative. I think that's one way or many ways, I guess, for parents to get involved.
Can you tell us about actions that you guys have taken?
Yeah, so we've done a couple sort of more public actions, and we, I guess, to clarify who that we is specifically sort of union-sponsored actions that were really developed in our racial justice committee, which is newly formed this summer, and that's a whole other conversation. But one of so in the push to sort of advocate for many things, came up the conversation, of course, in July and August of what's going on with school reopening and why has equity become a buzzword instead of an actual demand and something that we need to work for with actionable steps, right? It became this thing like, okay, we're just going to keep it just lost its meaning in the context of this. So the Racial Justice Committee wanted to sort of point out and clarify to the public what the classrooms would look like, particularly for the elementary school students and teachers when they reopen. So one of the actions we did was we staged a classroom on the State House, by the State House steps. We set up chairs, we set up desks, we set up the perimeter, excuse me, of what would be the measurements of a classroom, and with that many students in the classroom. And just sort of visually tried to represent what that would be like. And it was very tight. We had signs sort of calling out student experiences that we had heard that had been reported to us about confusion about the situation, around their fears, around their needs. And we had a number of speakers address the issues. Excuse me. And then the second action we did, also kind of planned through the Racial Justice Committee, was just this week, ahead of about an hour ahead of the Rhode Island Department of Education's regular meeting for the elementary and secondary council. And at that action, we were really just trying to call out what we've been talking about here in terms of the confusion, and the disservice that's going on in terms of VLA, in terms of the classroom situations, in terms of our building situations, which, as Lindsay so eloquently stated, have been going on for many, many years. Yep. And the lack of attention and money to these issues that have been going on for many, many years is inexcusable, and is a function of the entrenched racism, the entrenched defunding of our urban schools. Absolutely. And the entrenched sort of culture of white supremacy. And Lindsay shouted that out on a megaphone outside of RIDE at a Providence Teachers Union event. Mm-hmm. And that is significant, I have to say, okay? And not that it's no new news to anyone, but that in that context. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So, hearing what you guys are saying, and you know, kind of following what's been going on in New York with school reopenings, which they just pushed it back again,
Okay.
because they're just like because similarly to Providence, nobody knows anything, nobody has a clue what's going on, and nobody cares enough to really sit down and figure this out. So, you know, my question at this point to teachers in general is just like, has there been any talk of just a full-on strike? I mean, to me, that's like, what else do you do? Because you're not dealing with people in power who care at all. Like, they don't care. They've made that clear. Whether you're talking about the school districts, whether you're talking about, you know, the people above them, whether you're talking about the leadership of this country, they've made it clear. They don't care who gets sick. They don't care who lives or dies. They just want everyone back at work. So
Right.
I just feel like at this point, it's like, what do you do other than just a full-on strike? Like, fuck this. We're not working.
Yeah.
You know? What do you like? Has there been any talk about this? Like,
Yeah, so I would say we've been bringing this up
yeah,
since when? End of June, maybe beginning of July, right? So the Racial Justice Committee formed, and some of the first conversations, at least in the social media world, which is its own thing, were around striking and like what that means. And striking, and I think the difficulty in Providence right now, right? Like we're slowly building trust with parents and getting, I think this is the moment where we could so clearly align all of the unions that are inside of the school, right? The TAs are in the same position as we are. The clerks are in the same position as we are. And frankly, like my secretary says to me every day, like, when's the next action? I'm going to come. Like, what are you guys doing? You know, and I think we have the most power in terms of our labor. And I'd like to see us do it. I think what I've heard from our union president is she's nervous that folks will cross the picket line. Even if we go to a vote and it passes, I think she's afraid of the cohesiveness of the union right now, which is real. But I also think, you know, this is life or death, and if we don't do everything we can to, you know, to push this the right way, I don't know what y'all think.
who is crossing the picket line?
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
This
I'm like,
is what I
who
want
are
to know.
you?
Who wants to be like, yes, please, let
So
me die.
valid.
Let me die. Like, what?
And just speaking of that, how many have there been cases of people
Yes.
coming down?
Yeah, there's a case at my school right now. Yeah, of a teacher.
Of a
Right?
teacher.
They didn't shut us down. They didn't test anybody.
And you're not Carnivale, right? That
We're
had
not
two.
Carnivale. Nope, that's
And
two.
wasn't there another school today that
We
had
had
two students?
JSEC,
And PCTA.
PCTA. Yeah.
So, and like again, you know, it's what Tanzeem asked before. I'm pretty sure parents don't know this.
Right. This is day 5 too. It's only day 5.
It's only day 5.
Yeah.
The same thing in New York. So last week, when schools reopened, but only for teachers to go in and to like prepare or I don't know, train or do whatever bullshit they want them to do. And already within that first week, 10 teachers, I think it was 10, maybe more teachers were sick.
Wow.
And it's just like the kids are not even in the building yet. You know?
New York, and God, New York has New York not been through enough with this?
Right.
You know, you would have thought that people would have learned from what happened in March and in April, which was horrific. And apparently, no. You know?
Yeah. And I think, like, from my perspective, I mean, from my friends who teach across the country in different cities, like, to see strong unions just be like, nope, we're not doing it. We're not coming back, right? Philly, they filibustered the school board meeting. They're not going back. They're all remote. Like, just need to demand it. And we need to make sure that distance learning is equitable, because I can tell you that I couldn't understand a single one of my kids on Zoom this week. You know, they can't hear me. They're not getting what they need. So, and in a state like Rhode Island, there's no excuse. None.
And as Erroll pointed out earlier, like, what have folks been doing since March? Like, that could have been, we could have, there's all these could have, should haves, right? And now we're in it, right? Now we continue to be in it. And strengthening those partnerships, that communication is essential. And as I said, this is shifting that narrative. I mean, Boston and New York, as you've been talking a little bit about New York, and In Boston, their school, the Boston Public Schools, are partnering with their local union, with their AFT local, to make the changes, make the accommodations. They pushed back their start date as a result of taking that feedback. And I say, like, innocently, well, I don't know why our union hasn't been invited to the table, but we haven't. And we've actually been dismissed and said, no, you can't. So
what union are you guys? I'm sorry. What is this, the UFT or what?
The AFT, American Federation of Teachers, but the UFT is a thing of it, right? A branch of it for New York, right? Is that what you're asking about?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
The UFT from as part of New York's teaching labor. Is that what you're?
Well, no, I was asking about you guys specifically. Like, what is going on that your union has not been like brought to the table on this stuff? It just doesn't make sense, because if different locals of the AFT are doing this, what is going on? I mean, maybe you guys don't know.
Yeah, I'd say the takeover has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Well, in these last couple minutes, what can people do? Like, how do people get involved? How do we make sure that you all do know you have the power and that families are behind you? What can people do? Is there a number that
I want to say they should call. Is there a number? I don't know the number, but they need to. I think folks need to demand and continue to demand that we fix our schools, that we tear down the dysfunctional funding formula that allocates money to public schools statewide, and rebuild it in a way that actually equitably funds our needs. That's a long-term ask, right? Because then maybe our schools can get fixed. Then maybe we can get the resources that can meet our students and teachers and staff regardless of the sort of global conditions, right? But that is a long-term demand. I think in the short term, it's calling the parent. Let's look up to, I don't know that number. Calling the parent engagement office.
Yeah, I'd say like I think the way we can really build power, I don't know how it rolls at the secondary level, but like my parents and my families and my kids, like they're my people. Like I talk to them every day. So I think like sharing information with them as much as possible, making it a two-way street, and being thoughtful about what's going on for them, but they also like deeply care about us. You know, if you build an authentic relationship with them. So I've honestly just been like really real with the families I've spoken to recently, even parents of my past students, and just been like, it's a mess and this is what's up. And like, are you with us? And parents have said to me like, yes. And what do you need us to do? So I think if we can kind of like build that out teacher by teacher and school by school, then we're going to have a network of folks. Like we know the students are with us, right? I know, especially at the secondary levels, like they'll speak out. And so if we can get the families on board, and many of them are, because they're frustrated, they felt alone, they felt isolated and confused, just like we did, right? So I think we got to build it out like school by school and kind of like phone tree the shit out of this, and just like, then we'll have movement behind us for whatever actions teachers take. Because I want to see us moving together as one, you know, and I don't want to see other staff members in the school get left behind anymore. I think our union needs to do more to build power with TAs and with clerks who are more often than not, you know, BIPOC folks and folks from the community and multilingual folks who can help us build the movement.
So has there been any talk at all about teachers wildcatting it out and just fuck the union? The union doesn't want to move, we're going to move. Because I feel like this is what has to happen at this point. Like, because it's either that or we're just going to keep doing the same shit and then everyone's going to get sick and die. And it's like, what else do you do? I feel like wildcat strikes is just like the next step across the board. I don't know. Does that sound crazy? I feel like, I think unions, unfortunately, union power has been crushed a long time ago in this country. I think that, you know, the little bit that unions are attempting to do is clearly not enough. And in cities like Providence, where your union is not even being invited to these things and to the negotiating table, like, man, like flip the table, fuck it. Like, I don't know what else. I just feel like this is the time to do it, if ever there was one, you know, because it's like everyone is at risk now.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You're preaching to the choir. You're talking to
I know,
the
I know, you guys know already, but it's just so frustrating because it's like to sit here and to listen to all the bullshit that's going on. It's just like you want to do something. I know you guys know what I mean, and it's like, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Man.
I mean, and I think we should and we could find those ways and continue to like communicate with our families and continue to communicate with the wider public, because it just keeps cycling back then to care about, they're adult focused, and so these radicals are just doing their thing, right? And that's just totally a function of the like again, like just power, trying to take the power away by making everything confusing when we're starting school, putting on the pressure in all these different ways. So we're wiped. I mean, there's nothing like teacher tired, but there's nothing like teacher tired after the first week of school. And this level of teacher tired after a first week of school in a pandemic and this shit show is a whole other situation.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that we didn't really cover, but I just want to like say quickly is that I don't know at the upper levels, but the academic pressure that we're under. I mean, we got a slate of 15 lessons that we had to teach to the letter this week. And they were terrible, and they were all only academic focused. There was not one.
It's the first week of school.
There was, first of all, it's the first week of school. Second of all, they haven't been in school in 6 months. My children forget from Friday to Monday where their pencils are. Like, we're talking 6 months, and I'm supposed to be diving right into, decomposing numbers. But there was not one mention of the virus, of how you're feeling, of how you're doing. And these were social emotional lessons. I mean, so, and then the other piece for elementary is that Monday we have to start with the new core curriculum in math and reading, like lesson 1, they're putting us on a district-wide schedule, right? So that's the other piece. I think, like Aarav's saying, they're trying to distract us so hard so that we can't even organize because we're so tired.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we got you.
Yeah.
This is bullshit, and it is not going to continue. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Like these are our children. You know, you are out there on the front line. This is not okay. This is not okay. And this is our ongoing story. We're gonna have to come back to this, but we got you. We got you. We love you. We respect what you do. Some of your peers are terrible. You know that. You all are amazing and doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
And thank you so much for taking the time, to be here. We know that you're all exhausted. We can see it. We can see you all. I feel so bad. Like, you guys look so tired and so over everything, understandably.
But you all look great.
You do. I think you look great.
No.
Come on, man.
Definitely look great.
But just like you've had it, But thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and to let us know what's going on in these schools. So, if there's new things that are happening as they happen, please get in contact with us. Let us know. You're always welcome to come back and talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about.
Yeah, we will definitely be reaching out as stuff happens, because this is ongoing, and we need to connect and we need to do this together.
And we're happy to use this also, in whatever capacity for your organizing efforts. So if there's a way that we can help you to publicize stuff, let us know. We'll try. I mean, we don't have a very big reach. We probably got 2 people that watch.
Excuse me.
But
we had 27 downloads last week. All right.
Well, and then those downloads we're gonna tweet it and do whatever they do. So we have to utilize that business too, right? So.
Definitely, yeah. But please,
we're growing.
Anytime you want to use this, you are welcome to do that. But thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Get some rest.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Yo, powerful episode.
It was great, but it's I'm so angry.
Yeah.
It's anger, frustration, and I'm just I just want to see all the teachers across the fucking country be like, fuck you, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
You're not killing us, you're not killing our families, you're not killing our kids. Like, get out of here, you know?
It's like before we got on, I was on Zoom with a bunch of my teacher friends, all the same faces, you know, asking them the same questions, like, what's going on, how is it? It's terrible across the board.
Yeah.
And just what they were saying about, like, not one mention to young people about what's going on. How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you put our babies in these rooms and you're not even talking to them about, like, just how preposterous it is that, like, you have to sit there with a mask and plexiglass between you and your teacher. Like, how much are kids learning right now?
Yeah.
How much could you possibly be learning?
You can't. It's impossible. It's impossible. And the thing is, my fear in all of this is that obviously, like, it's the stuff with the virus, people getting sick, kids getting sick, teachers getting sick, you know, people bringing it home to their families. But it's also like kids just falling through the cracks.
Yep.
Like hearing about this virtual learning bullshit, kids falling through the cracks. Can you, like, how many of our kids are just not going to get an education this year? And maybe next year, who fucking knows? You know what I mean? And that's what I keep thinking about. And I'm seeing all the kids in my neighborhood who are like, school was supposed to start, now it's not starting, now what? And so many kids who live in shelters, who don't have permanent housing, who don't have access to Wi-Fi. What are we going to do with these kids? You know, like their learning is just going to stop. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's infuriating. And in a fucking country that has so much goddamn wealth, for this to be happening, I mean, I it doesn't surprise me because it's America, but it just like, if this doesn't light a fire under everyone's ass, your kids, I mean, what will? I don't know, you know?
Well, I think the thing is, it's like the fire, I think, for people has been like internalized in some kind of way. So it's not like it becomes internal. So, you know, like all the rage and the anger that is absolutely justified that you feel, you take it out on the people that you love, or you drink, or you smoke, or you eat too much, or you don't sleep,
or you do some fucked up shit in your community, in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, what do people think? You know, New York City, I feel like, is going back to how it was in the 80s. Like slowly but surely, we're moving back there. And they're talking about, you know, the rise in crime. And the thing is, like, it is real. Violence is going up. Shit is happening. And the answer is not more cops. The answer is not fucking more cops. Why is this happening? Because we're living in shit. We have there's no jobs, no money. Everyone is fucking probably depressed as fuck. And what do? It's what you were saying. You take it out on each other.
Yep.
You know, the people who you have access to. And this is what's happening. And it's just like, oh, I'm so tired. You know? It's like tiring, exhausting, infuriating, and you just want it to stop already.
And the thing is, though, the difference is like, yo, we're gonna change this shit. Like,
we have to. We don't
be tolerated. Like, we got this. Yo, listeners, viewers, whatever. Like, let us know, because we need to be building this coalition across this country, across this world. Like, we got to make this shit better.
And it's not just in terms of education. Of course, education is like one aspect of it. So it's education, but it's also things like secure housing, food, like all these things that we've never had, or that we haven't been secure for so many of us, are only going to get worse. And really, like, please, please, please hit us up and tell us, what are some things that are going on in other cities? How are other communities handling this? And how do we spread those like alternative ways of surviving to different places? Because it's like, there's somebody somewhere is figuring out the education pieces. You know, somebody somewhere, like, for example, in New York City, this thing is happening where people are setting up community fridges in neighborhoods, which I am dying to do that in my neighborhood. So please, if you have a resource for me in New York City on who to contact to do this, I want to figure this out and bring it here. But it's just like things like this. Yeah.
So real quick, when we post this, this video, the link to the podcast, we're gonna post it on our new fan page. I'm really pleased to announce that we have a fan page. Tanzeem's gonna make the fan page,
Fan page.
and
Wait,
I'm gonna make the email.
I'm making the fan page. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, so this
I'll make
fan
the
page
email on
might
Facebook.
not work
Oh my god,
because I'm the grandma and I
you
don't really know.
never made a page on Facebook?
I know for
All
what.
right, so
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out,
yeah,
guys.
it's easy. It's easy,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna make a Gmail,
Mhm.
so that people can email.
Yeah.
But let's like try to keep this conversation going.
Please.
For Providence folks, like yo, like this is what I'm trying to do. You know,
Mhm.
like we're out here trying to figure out how to like build this power so that these teachers of color, these teachers that care,
Mhm.
these families, these young people get the education and the respect that they deserve. You know, because so much of it isn't just education, it isn't just housing. It's really like looking at another human and seeing their
Mhm.
humanity and
Yeah.
building community with them. You know,
Right.
like we need food, we need an education, and we need a place to sleep at night.
Mhm.
We need medicine. All these things, like it's not even that hard to understand, because like most of these people who don't give a shit about another human, if they saw my stupid little cat walking down the street, they would offer the cat
Yeah.
all of those things, but not
Right.
to another human. You
Mhm.
know, like we have to do better. We have to demand better of the people who supposedly represent us. Like
Yeah.
it's not okay. It's not okay.
And also, we have to scare the shit out of those people. Scare the shit out of them because honestly, asking nicely not gonna work.
Yeah.
Scare them to the point where they give you what you want. Like that's where we're at. I mean, I feel like that's where we've been at for a while, but it's just like this shit is life or death, and this is not.
It's
This is not.
literally life
It,
or death. It's
right.
literally life or death. And
Mhm.
the thing is, like, if COVID spreads through these schools, like
Mhm.
these
Which
whole, and the thing
going
is,
to.
like, it's going to like it's only been a
Mhm.
week, and just like in the recording, you know, I knew of like 4 cases. I think that they were saying that there's like 6.
Yeah.
Like, and then
Yeah.
all the teachers I was talking to earlier, like some of them were like, "Oh, we should hang out." I'm like, "I'm not hanging with you guys." They're like, "No." They're like, "You know what? You shouldn't, because like, yo, we're all exposed."
Right.
Can you
Right.
imagine just like showing up like for your 9 to 5 and like
Mhm.
you have to be exposed?
Yep.
But
And
what
I
about
just
these?
want to make the
Go ahead.
point that we're talking about teachers and them being exposed, and that's real, but just think about all the essential workers who have
Yep.
been working throughout this whole thing, who don't make a lot of money, who didn't get a raise, didn't get extra money. There was no hazard pay for these people, and they were
And
forced to go to work.
and
And think
also,
about, yeah, go ahead.
essential workers is such a like asshole term. It's like when you are the like you're a person who's working in a restaurant and you're making minimum wage, or at like a, I don't know, at like a
Hmm.
clothing store, and they call you an assistant manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just so they
Like,
don't have to have a manager,
right.
right? You're an essential worker. You work at a grocery store. You're not
Mhm.
making any money. Your job is hard as fuck, right?
Yep.
You're working terrible hours,
Yep.
but you're essential.
Yeah.
Pay that
Yeah.
person essentially then.
Mhm. Yeah. But also, I just feel like this. So since the beginning of this pandemic, and when they did this whole the shutdown thing, and only essential workers were working and all of that, my thing is just like, what is the military doing right now? Why do we have people making minimum wage, putting their lives at risk for this bullshit when they can stay home? And you know what? The National Guard, every branch of the military, what are you doing right now?
Slow
Those
down.
people, those people should be handing out things to us. Those people should be the ones facilitating, how we get food, how we get meds, how we get the things we need. Because
I,
what is to me, what is the purpose? If your only purpose is to go blow people up, you should probably
yeah.
rethink what you're doing,
I feel like in some places, I think in Rhode Island, the National Guard was doing stuff, like they were doing testing early, but I think like the federal government like told them they couldn't do that or something.
Fucking stupid.
And the
It's
thing is, like, yeah, like this stuff should out like nobody should be okay with any of
Mhm.
this, you know? And like we
Yeah.
have to take action, because like like I don't want to see no little tiny casket. Do you know what I mean?
I know. But we should end this on a positive note. We are going to figure this out, guys. You are a part of that process of figuring this out. We all are. So again, please, Errol's going to make the Gmail. I'm going to apparently make this fan page.
She got
this. I'll figure it out. But get in contact with us. So, like, what are some things happening in other cities? What are things happening in other communities? How are other people handling this? And what are actionable things that we can do across the board to spread, information and also different techniques of how to make things work for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because really, the people in power, they never cared. They don't care now, and they have abandoned us completely. Like, there's no help from them. So stop looking to them. Look to yourself, look to your neighbors, look to the people around you, because that's who it's going to be.
And the thing is, the truth is, we always had the answers. We always had the answers.
Yep.
They've beaten us down every way possible to make us not connect those things. But like, we know, we just have to come together. The collective is all power.
Yep, this is very true. So on that note, we're gonna end this. Thank you guys.
One last thing. So Tanzeem, I'm just gonna do this on the air, doing this live. Next episode, could we talk about Lovecraft Country?
We can talk about Lovecraft Country. I'm so down for that. I love that show. Thank you for putting me on. I never would have even thought to watch it because that whatever weird sci-fi thing that Erroll is into is not what I'm into, but then he tells me about it and then I get into
it. Yes, you are, man.
But it's not, like when you tell me about these kind of shows, I start watching and then I'm like, oh, this is really good. But on my own, it's not something that I would be like, oh.
Yeah, you'd be watching Hercules or Spartacus or whatever foolishness you'd be watching.
Actually, I watch I May Destroy You. Have you seen this?
No, I'm scared.
You need to watch this. So, have you seen Bubblegum?
Of course,
or Chewing Gum?
Bubblegum.
No, Chewing Gum. Yes. Chewing Gum. So the woman, Michaela Cole, it's her show, and it's about like her real life, like experience when she was filming Chewing Gum, and about how she got sexually assaulted, and it's fucking great. And I love Michaela Cole. I love her. Love her.
I don't know if I can take it though.
It's not easy. There's certain scenes when it's just like, whoa. But it's a great show. I feel like anything Michaela Cole does is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, she was dope in like that episode of Black Mirror that she was on.
Oh, I haven't seen Black Mirror in so long. I'm like way behind. Yeah. But so yes, we can do an episode on Lovecraft Country. I also want to do an episode on Cuties. This is what I was telling you earlier. Have you heard of Cuties?
No,
what's Cuties that? Is a French film, and there's been all this controversy around it recently, because the poster for Cuties, and I get why people had a reaction to it. It was very controversial, but basically the movie is about, it's a French film about this Muslim girl. She's 11 years old, and she joins this like twerking team, and it's just like I watched it today, and that movie gave me. So it's pretty good. Yes, that movie. It's no, the poster that was controversial was like the girls like in very suggestive clothing, twerking. Yeah. And so people lost their shit. But I think that we should talk about it. I actually thought it was a good film. It gave me a lot of feels because even just like the first scene, I was like, oh, this was my life growing up. Okay. Cool. It's like in a masjid with all these women and the things they're saying. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't hear this again. I heard this my entire life, but it's a good movie.
Okay.
It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie.
Okay.
So I think we should talk about that after.
Okay.
Hey. Okay.
Hey, thank you for doing this. I know that once again, you guys behind the scenes, Tanzeem wanted to kill me. I messed with her schedule.
It's okay.
I appreciate you. This was really good and really important.
Yeah. And again, thank you to all the guests who were on today. Also, thank you to the other teacher that was on the last episode. You guys are amazing. Like I said, you guys do amazing things, and we appreciate you and love you and support you. Okay.
All right, Bestie Hive. Thank you for listening to episode 7, the part 2. and we'll be back soon.
We will. Until next time, guys.